don't know what this is, 47 something. Runs and drives. It's got a 305 Oldsmobile in it. They got some concoction here for steering. Look at that. You can kick it and bend it. They got a piece of tin foil here for a steering arm. It's all over the road. No shocks on it. They got the rear end backwards. So the steering angle's off. I gotta fix that. Welded up some kind of weird headers here. Apparently the motor runs pretty good. Been cut up and welded back together. And here's the owner. We've been friends for a long time. See you, Brett. So this would be my next project. Got to fix it. It's got a pretty nice inside. Use some wood for gauges. I don't know what kind of seats these are. It's been channeled 6 inches. Got an automatic in it. He says he don't even think it's got any kind of suspension in the back. You have an angle between where your steering arm is the center of this, and what it should do ideally is line up with the center line of the rear end. And the way this one is, it's pointing over there towards the outside back of the AMX. So these are going to have to be cut off and moved to the back. And of course you really can't do that because of how low it is here in front. They don't have any shocks on it. He says he don't know what to do, whether put another front end on it or or what. These old suicide front ends are not so good in the first place, but they did it to get it as low as they can, and they sacrificed drivability. And of course I haven't started or anything, but straight exhaust pipes, this thing will be loud, make your ears bleed. Says they can get it started and running, and then it quits. We'll just see. Ugh. Damn, oh, I ain't got no room in here. Battery's dead. Here at the rat rod, this steering angle here is pointed way out towards the outside of the car. They cut this, it looks like they turned this front end around. This drag link should be in the back, and this way, you know, this angle here would be pointing towards the rear of the car. And this tie rod end would be right in this area someplace. It's going to interfere with the way they got it mounted. That's why you did it. Now what I can do is put that tie rod up here. You can see over there I can make new brackets, and I can make the brackets to where the steering angle is like this, pointing towards the rear of the car. Normally it's below all of this accoutrements, but in this case the only way to put it below it, this is right now higher than the frame, so I either have to raise the frame 3 or 4 inches which don't really want to do. I want to keep this low look. Or I can make brackets here and bring them up and run that tie rod right across here someplace up high. I can figure that out. So that'll work. So we'll just, instead of having this is not a good idea anyway, because every time you hit something, you're going to bend your tie rod. This is not designed to be a bumper. It looks like it's already been bent. But I can cut these off and weld them back into the back. I don't know, I might be able to swap them around, flip this whole thing over. I'll have to look at the bolt sizes. Or just, yeah, I'll do that first. I'll try to flip them around to the other side towards the back, and then I'll have to cut them and put them where they'll go up high here. That's one of the problems that can be solved. Now what I did was put a jack on the frame and try to pick it up, and if you look there, the frame should come up at least a couple inches before the wheel comes off the ground, and as you can see, it's solid. There isn't no spring at all. And the reason why is because they put this plate to the axle, to the I-beam, and this plate's pretty solid. It's not solid enough to make this whole front end completely solid, but there's no suspension in this thing. This needs to be loose. This axle has to go up and down, and the way they've got it welded in here with this plate, it's not going to go up and down at all. It's solid. So not only there's no springs in it, this spring should be holding it, but with this this axle bolted down to the frame here, there's no way that you got any suspension at all. Now I don't know how strong this spring is. It might be so weak that it just bottoms out immediately. If so, I can mount some kind of coilover shocks on it in this area and use the combination of the springs, the coil springs, and this cross spring to give it a little movement. It'll take some fooling around and playing with that, but some kind of a coilover shock here, you know, probably at an angle. These bullet things gonna have to go. They're just decorative anyway. You can always weld them on someplace else. I don't think it's legal to have something like that for a bumper. They're trying to keep the military theme, but themes be damned. We need this thing to be safe. So basically, we got a solid front end here. It might tweak a little. That's a 1/4 inch plate of steel, so however much that flexes is all the suspension we got. So I think I can flip that around the tie rod, and I'm going to take all this crazy business right here in the front off, and I can determine whether the springs are just going to bottom out. We might be able to put another leaf in there. Not sure what's going to happen with that, but it's going to have some shocks, and we need some kind of a panhard bar once I take this loose, because this will just move all over the place then, and you know, that's the way I thought it was when I first saw the pictures. I didn't realize it was bolted down. So even though it'll steer good like it is, there's no suspension. So we'll have to put a panhard bar somewhere from the axle over to the center of the car. Try to get it as level as we can to keep this front end from going side to side, because it'll steer all right, and then you hit a bump and it knocks the whole front end over, and then it flops back, and it's just on the end of these springs down here, these spring perches. They'll just flop all over the place. It's enough to move you around, at least in your whole lane. But this thing would be all right to drive, 10, 15, 20 miles an hour. If it didn't beat your brains out. I don't know what these guys were thinking about when they did it. I mean, they were very creative. It's a nice little rat rod, but they obviously had some kind of skills, but they really didn't know what they were doing. Now, it'd be all right, just take it to a show, just for like a show thing, but there's no way that this is a daily driver. And this big old hunk of iron here, I don't know what this is out of. You can see the watch. I'll jack this up. It's maybe got a ½ inch of trouble, if that. Nowhere near good enough. But this thing's got to go. I thought, and this has got to be low. All the geometry just messed up, and I can tell what they did. They even grinded on it and tried to clear this pipe here, and it's just a mess. Even if they would have had a couple more Heim joints or U joints in it, these old rag joints aren't any good anyway. They should have spent $100 on good stuff, and they could have made a pretty nice deal. And it looks like they had already made a bracket to mount the steering box onto, and then it wouldn't fit the mufflers, and so they put another bracket on it and raised it up. And of course, this was way too high for that. Well, anyway, this is just dog's breakfast here, and it's too big and clunky and ugly anyway. That's got to go. It should be back here on the frame somewhere. I don't know what I'll do. I was thinking that if we take this front thing out, I might be able to put a Mustang rack and pinion here, right along the front of the axle, and where it goes in front of the axle is where we got lock-to-lock steering, and then it'll be pointing towards back somewhere, and then we've got to do whatever we got to do with the steering with 2 or 3 U joints or whatever we got to do to get to the rack and pinion. If there's no way we can really put anything under here, there's only about 6 or 7 inches. This box could be, there's no way to lower it down into the frame, because it's 8 inches big. You have to cut the frame in half and mount something down in there, and I wouldn't want to do something like that. I don't know what kind of steering box we can find, but since this all got to be changed anyway, there's no use of going with a big dump truck front end steering box. That thing's huge. That's probably just a bunch of junk they had laying around. Might have been out of the old truck that this come out of. So anyway, that's all got to go, and it doesn't really make any sense. I could make him a bracket here where it would steer. It would be better, but it's got no suspension, and it really kind of a waste of time doing something like that. How we do the headers, that's something else. It's got a tilt steering wheel in it, which is not too bad. But it looks like underneath there, you know, the steering box could be lowered at least 3 inches, 4 inches, or steering column. Yeah, they've got it all, you know, crapped in there real good, but I could probably move it down to around this area, and with a smaller box I might be able to get 2 U-joints to lower all of this stuff here way down. And then I think what we're going to have to do is try to get a set of shorty headers. Like I said, just motor mounts down in here, so you know, trying to go inside the frame is not going to work. It might, but we've got no room in there. There's starters right there. And it's possible we could get a set of shorty headers and turn them upside down, so they would be pointed up this way, and that would go under this this thing, except if we flip them around, they're going to be pointed towards the front. I really haven't thought about that too much. I had this kind of a problem with a Ford motor once, but I think I'm just going to have to buy a set of headers, and we're just going to have to eyeball them here and see what we got. I may have to just cut this one up, or maybe cut them all up, get the steering down low, take them out above the steering shaft, which is what I think should happen, and then come into some kind of a collector here, and then go back down under the frame where it's been channeled for a muffler. I'm not sure. He said that he ordered a set of headers that came up. Well, you know, like zoomy dragster type headers. Well, maybe that's all right. That might be a solution, but I don't know. That's not the way I do things. I'm trying to bring them down like normal car, even if we had a, you know, like a side pipes like on a Roadster or something. That really wouldn't work too well because the door is so low. You know, we've only got 3 or 4 inches there under the door. My suggestion would be to bring them down, put a glass pack under that door, and if you had to, bring something out right here. It'd still be plenty loud. You know, and there's probably, I'm sure, room under here to put mufflers. I don't know. So this whole thing needs a little thinking of design. And the other side, it's going to have to be the same way. We're not really interfering with anything, but we got the oil filter and that stuff, so we're going to have to take these headers on the outside of the frame and then back. So that's basically what we got to do. Those would be the 2 main things. I haven't even looked here and see if it's got any suspension in it. It's got a hole cut there. I'll crawl under there and see if I can see what kind of suspension's in the back. Well, you can see a coil spring up under there. He said they told him it was out of a Monte Carlo. So it does have a spring and a shock on it. And a big old long trailing arm can see it on that one over there. It's about 3 feet long. Bolted into the frame. It was almost impossible to get a jack under this thing. So it does have some kind of a rear suspension. It looks like they crunched something here. Well, just from first look, we got a shock and springs. So maybe it does have some kind of suspension. How good it is, whether it's bottomed out or not, I don't know. It looks like the whole frame was made of 1-inch square tubing. Let's see some. Looks like they made the floorboard, and looking towards the front there, we got plenty of room to put a big glass pack in there and do something with the mufflers. So that's good enough. We'll see what this see if I can bounce up and down on it at all. I'm pushing on the bed here, and I'm rocking it a little. So looks like the rear suspension will be workable. I'm still getting a kick out of the machine gun they made. Didn't do a really good job. Same thing here with the battery box, just cheap hinges and stuff. One thing is going to have to be some kind of some happy aftermarket blinker on it. Nothing wrong with that. It's a rat rod. But I know this guy, and there's one thing driving, you know, some kind of rat rod that's half held together, but he likes stuff that's real nice. You saw the little three-wheeler thing he's got, and he's got enough money to do it. So I think we ought to put a good I did it steering box with a tilt in it. It's got all of the turn signals and everything made into it. Drop it down here, you know, 6 inches, whatever. Run that through with a good, you know, either we can use a Corvair steering box or something, and make all this front end good. And basically that's it. The rear end probably be all right. We just have to sort out this front end and the steering. And it's got the wrong valve covers on it. I don't know, these are Chevrolet or something. They're just bolts around the outside, and on the other side they just glued up these. They don't fit this Oldsmobile. But anyway, that's my diagnosis for it. The rear end will work. We need to figure out how to work this front end and get the steering sorted out and move on from there. A little more. I took the U-bolts out. You can see I got not even a half an inch, maybe a 3/8 of an inch. And if you, I jack it up on the axle, it's picking up the whole car. And you watch when I drop it, it didn't flex at all. At least the bodies, I can see it rocking a little right now. But whatever it is, you know, you should be able to get a little bit. The only flex I'm getting is in the tires. And you know, you should be able to jump up and down on it and get you know, half inch of travel anyway. So that spring is basically bottomed out. The end links here are pointed in. So the spring will let it go down a little more. I'm not sure what the deal is here. If I try to jack it up, let me get this in here on the frame. Well, see, now I'm actually, it's off the ground. Now I'll drop it again and we'll see if it's getting flex. No, I'm getting a rock out of the body. At least the body's loose now. I mean, the frame and everything, I don't know how tight those heim joints are back there. They should go. They're heim joints, I doubt seriously if they're so solid that they would keep it from moving. Something's fishy there. I mean, it's not when I jack up the frame again, I'll show you. See, that should be bringing. See, the frame is twisted and you can see that it's higher here than it is over there. But the tire's off the ground right here right now. And we got just a little bit of rocking in it. I don't know if this if the spring is what's going on. They've got a couple pretty serious clamps on the spring. To me, that spring looks way too little. And I really don't know what the deal is. Because normally, you know, you got 6 or 7 plates, and this one's got 5. I don't know if another plate would help it. I kind of doubt it because it's not raising when I jack it up. So somewhere in this geometry, the front end is not moving up and down. I think it needs a stronger spring. They might have done that just to lower it and then bolted this. I have no idea what they were thinking of when they designed and built this thing. But it would be a lot better now than it was. You know, that this steering column's locked, but that plate's flexing, so that's going to kill the steering. I might just weld something on that plate to stiffen it up. rather than trying to fix anything, I could probably just put a little piece of angle on there. Might keep it from flexing some, and go drive it and see if there's any suspension in it at all. I mean, it's better now. It looks like it dropped it, you know, maybe 3/8 of an inch, and the front end should be moving around a little bit now. But you know, you would think that when you jack the car up, the spring would push the suspension down, you know, or as it is, that spring is almost acting like a solid piece of steel across there. No spring to it. And I don't think that these two clamps here would make any difference. I'm gonna loosen them up just for kicks and see if it does make a difference. And put a couple jack stands under the frame so we could see if this so the front end is moving side to side, but definitely not up and down. And you can see how flimsy it all is. All this is just moving around. You know, this thing would be a nightmare to try to drive. It's not even I don't know if there's something in here or not. I don't have anything thin. Let's see if I can see in it. Oh, actually the axle is setting on it. Setting on that plate. It's a round on the bottom, so even it shows 3/8 here. It's not flat, so the axle is setting on that plate. I think I'll just go under there and cut that plate off. Be a lot easier than trying to unbolt it. Alright, I got in there with a Sawzall. I was able to cut that plate off. I didn't see if it went up or down or anything, but I've got a jack under it. We'll see if it'll drop it. Should. Oh yeah. Alright. Now if I jack up the spring, yeah, see, still it's got a little suspension though. My next yeah, see, the spring opened up real good there now, so I'm going to take the jack stands out and see what right now it's being held up by the jack stands. If I take them out, we'll see how much drop we actually got in this thing. They put that plate in there for some reason. Oh, that's bad that steering turned that much and the steering wheel's locked. Let's see if I can get the steering loose here. That's because it's all bending around. Ah, shit. Stop, I had to turn it a quarter of a turn. to get the wheels straight. That's why they did it. They just made that solid, and you can see the angle on this just got crazy bad all of a sudden. Probably because there's no stop on how high that frame will go. Well, I'll have to get these stands out from under it and see what we got. Jack stands, it dropped down maybe a ½ inch below where it was. Let's see if I can jump on it now. No, still no movement. But now the front end is at least moving around. I jack up either side, it'll rotate now. And our on the ground, you can see the light moving. And if you look down there, the frame's moving up and down. See, because they got this arm is pointed up and down. So what it's doing is steering, it's just rocking the frame. It's not moving the wheel at all. So that's why they put that in there. They decided they'd just bolt that frame together. This thing probably, without that brace in it, probably wouldn't drive at all. I mean, it might, but I doubt if you could, this is turning half a turn. Nothing's happened. See, except it's just raising up the car. So that's got to be lowered down to where it's pushing straight forward and not up and down. Yeah, I don't know what the guys thought. They did a pretty good job, but they got to this point, and this is clown stuff. This thing wouldn't be safe at any speed. So anyway, it's still not moving at all. It'd be pretty stiff. I mean, I could deal with that, but all of this geometry's got to be changed. There's no way that this would ever work. It just wouldn't work. The other thing, this might be able to be, sometimes they go through the frame. The steering box goes through the frame, so it's got a straight pull on it, and it's pushing against the frame here, straight to the rod, and then this radius rod here keeps it from moving. But anyway, that box has just got to go. It's too big and clunky, and the geometry's all wrong, and this stuff's all bent, and so I got my work cut out for me, but at least I know what it is. But it is a cool truck, I have to tell you, So it's worth a few $1,000s to fix up the front. Press on. Now, I jacked up the frame. You can see as I jack it, it's turning the wheels in because of this geometry. But it's raised up probably 3 inches. See, I got 3 inches of suspension in it, which is probably good enough for this. And they don't have any more on the bottom. Oh yeah, see now it's moving. See, we got a set of coilover shocks and a panhard bar to keep the front end from moving side to side. And I think we can use this front end. Playing with this front end, I talked to the owner today. You can see that plate's bending around, and actually it's not even tight on the bolts. Not only is it bending, it's not even bolted down. But I showed him what I thought we could do is reverse these, put the tie rod above the frame, and the Corvair steering box is cross steering, so it would go across the car, and it's not really possible. Well, it's probably possible, but not without lowering or raising this frame. I looked at some Corvair and some Mustang stuff. I'm trying to get something that's this configuration. I just didn't like this big old giant steering box, and since we know that these headers are going to come off of here, and he gave me the okay, he liked the idea of a nice billet chrome steering wheel, so it would come out down here somewhere. It's way high inside the car, but we can cut it and get it down there lower. Might have to play with the pedals or something. But just you can't really see in here. Maybe this will switch to. Let's see if I can turn my light. There we go. He's got, you know, I've seen these accelerators, you know, it's okay. You don't have a lot of room in there, but I can lower the steering several inches, and it looks like from here it's just really been glarped on there. So I think, and the steering wheel itself is tilted up all the way. And if this was lowered down quite a bit, you'd be able to, this wheel would be way high and you could tilt it down. So I'm going to go with a chrome steering. It's such a nice truck, you know. We talked to, sure enough, it did have two builders, and the guy that built it said that he was only responsible from the firewall back. It come from Kentucky or someplace, and apparently he built all this back. Anyway, he sold it to these clowns, and they're the ones that did this mess in here. Now, the reason I didn't like this, well, it's awful kind of big and clunky. And they whacked the frame up down here. I don't know, try the light again. It's all, they cut part of the frame out, and I don't know why they would use a big giant bolt on there. But what I'm thinking, this is about, looking from front to back there, it's about 6 or 8 inches. That looks like it's level, 6 or 8 inches high. And I can lower this from the bottom here all the way down, probably 4 inches. And I won't have to buy another steering box. This has already got the correct geometry. The only thing that's going to be weird is this is going to interfere with the pipes. Well, we'll just take the pipes off, take all this out of here, and I can put this box down lower, cut it all out of there, and fix that frame. And if I lower the steering down here 6 inches or so, that's going to give me a steering bar that's about this angle, and I think my headers will clear it on top. I ordered a set of headers for it. We'll see what they look like, but I may be able to use this steering box itself. The only way to find out really is to cut it all off of there and drop it. I can do some measuring. I really don't want to use this big old ugly box, but you know, trying to buy a couple $100 box and just on hoping it will work, or the trouble that it will take me to try to find something. So I know that this one's right, and it's turning right, and so I'm going to try to salvage this box, and I'll do a little measuring and try to see where I can lower it to without getting into the cutting into the frame. I think it looks like it'll obviously lower 3 or 4 inches, and I'll try to measure up some stuff and see what I can do.